This man is a video making machine.
You're goddamn right.
Since the Treehouse demo actually explains a lot of the hidden details in the trailer, this video will be more of a breakdown of the trailer, explaining what is happening as well as pointing out some hidden details. If you haven't seen the original trailer, click the link on screen. It's been a few days since the reveal trailer for Breath of the Wild dropped, and in that time, I've tried to make an analysis video on it a few times. However, each time I found that every time I pointed something out or speculated, it was immediately either confirmed or debunked by the Treehouse livestream that was going on. So I've waited until now when the information has stopped to analyse the trailer, and now I'm at the point where I know enough about the demo to point out interesting things. Without further ado, let's get into the analysis. The trailer begins with the words, "Open your eyes."
Open your eyes.
Which we know is what a mysterious voice tells Link at the very beginning of the game, when he wakes up in the Shrine of Resurrection. This confirms that, to a small extent, Breath of the Wild will feature voice acting. While the characters we've seen in the game don't have voices, the narrator does. Odd. Then the trailer begins with a camera panning over some grassy plains, like we've seen before in Breath of the Wild footage. However, if we focus and zoom in a bit, we can see a couple of interesting details here. First off is this rock, which looks very similar to these huge headstone rocks from the Wind Waker, doesn't it? Maybe bombing it will reveal a secret, or like in the Wind Waker, an upgrade to Link's strength will allow him to lift it. There's also some sort of structure here with what looks like a fence. I think it's one of the deactivated guardians that seem to be scattered around the world of Breath of the Wild. Next up, a shot of Link riding through a little valley with a fallen tree above. Although Link can chop down trees himself, often to make bridges across valleys, it's unlikely that he felled this one himself due to its huge size. There is also a tower present in the distance, one of the resurrection towers that we know from the Old Man serve as both fast travel points and high vantage points for surveying the landscape, that appeared all over the map when Link activated one in the Great Plateau. This shot is of a beautiful lake with palm trees, but if you look closely you can see some hidden details, such as a little house on the cliff as well as one of the resurrection towers. There is a little wooden decking in the lake, and judging from this skull it looks like an unoccupied bokoblin encampment, perhaps already cleared by Link. There's also a small tower in the distance which is likely Link can climb up for treasure on the top. Next we have an apparently peaceful scene, likely set near the previous one because of the sand and palm trees, until you look up on the cliff and notice some sort of monster slowly stalking along it. From the silhouette I can make out a pronounced ribcage and spine, perhaps some new kind of Stelphos. We've seen that Breath of the Wild has new creatures as Stelphos, such as Stelphos bokoblins or Stalkoblins. So this might be something larger of the same sort. Either way, it's very likely that this monster is an overworld mini-boss, like some of the other monsters we see later in the trailer. Here we see some of the wildlife of Breath. A group of ducks calmly swims in front of the camera. I wonder if Link will be able to hunt them for duck meat. It is possible because according to the Treehouse team, even butterflies can be killed by Link. In the background, there's a ruined building and the cleft rock. There is another wildlife scene here, with one deer and 3 does apparently startled, running away from the camera. Perhaps Link has scared them away. We see that he must remain silent in order to approach some animals, so it's likely that this is their reaction if Link comes up to them too quickly. Again, like with the ducks, it's probable that Link will be able to kill them for venison. This shot takes place in the rocky desert hills, either here or here on the map. There's a bokoblin encampment built into the cliff face on the left, which we see later on in the trailer. This scene shows a panning shot just above the Temple of Time, though because of this the surroundings are already known to us as it takes place in the Great Plateau, which all demo footage was limited to. This shot shows the edge of the Great Plateau. It's interesting how most of the Great Plateau is surrounded by old walls, suggesting it was once a fortified point in the world. Beyond the walls we can get a glimpse of Hyrule Field, including the cleft rock and a small forest. Here, a shot shows multiple deactivated guardians that are scattered across the world, as well as a few more does, suggesting that they are quite common in this world. There's a gate in the background too, which could lead to another area. Next we get a close-up of the deactivated guardians, who are looking decidedly worse for wear, before lightning strikes in the background showing the game's dynamic weather. During what we can assume is the same storm, we see 2 more deactivated guardians. this time taking place near the ruins of the Temple of Time. The Treehouse team actually confirmed that wearing metallic items will make Link more likely to be struck by lightning, which goes to show what a large effect the weather will have on the game. With another Wake Up Link, we see him running along a grassy plain before jumping off of a cliff Skyward Sword style. But instead of being saved by his Loftwing, he's saved by his paraglider, and we get a beautiful panning shot of the Great Plateau, with a shrine visible in the distance. Here we see Link running up to a tree with exposed roots that made a little shelter underneath it. In this little alcove there's a glowing orange pile, which is probably a fire, suggesting that it's a small camp or resting spot to protect Link from the elements. And now we get our first good look at the sneaking mechanic. Link stays low and moves slowly through the grass to approach a horse, before quickly mounting it as it tries to throw him. He'll probably have to cling on for dear life for a few seconds before the horse gets used to him. Next up, the bridge near the Great Plateau, which many people assume is the Great Bridge of Hylia from Twilight Princess. This time, it seems, Link may even be able to enter the structures at either end, suggested by the windows. There's a banner on the walls showing the Hylian crest. As Link rides through this first structure, we can see 2 resurrection towers in the distance, as well as a shrine, the Temple of Time, and also what appears to be something floating in the distance. I've enhanced the best image we've got of it, and call me crazy, but it looks like some sort of artificial floating island. This part here especially looks man-made, but the top could easily be natural with what could be rocks. This is incredibly bizarre, and I can't wait to find out what it is. And now potentially Breath of the Wild's most famous mechanic, climbing. We see Link scaling a tree, which we know he can do to either get to a vantage point to hunt from, or to pick fruit, then the Temple of Time, then the giant cleft rock. As you can see, it uses stamina, so he can't climb indefinitely, but certain foods will increase his stamina, allowing him to climb even higher. This is another new mechanic in Breath of the Wild, woodcutting. Link is using a woodcutter's axe to fell a large tree to make a bridge across a canyon, which we know isn't an automatic process since he has to chop it in the right direction, otherwise it'll simply fall into the canyon. Also, can you spot the old man cutting a tree behind Link? Perhaps he's the one to teach you this. Next, a shot that got fangirls screaming. Link wearing just underwear diving into a lake. He has a spear on his back, perhaps for spearfishing. Link hunts a boar and gets a headshot, which we know does double damage and instant kills the poor bugger. Ah well, he looks tasty as we see after this next shot, where Link burns some dry grass with a flaming stick, presumably to block off the exit to a bokoblin encampment back here. From the positioning, I recognise this area as near where the fire rod is found, so it's interesting that Link is using fire to attack the encampment. And here we see Link cooking up the tasty boar that he hunted, creating a wholesome meal. Yum. Another sneaking mechanic is seen here. Link is hiding behind some crates and shoots a beehive out of a nearby tree which scares away the bokoblins. Here we see, in the words of Commonwealth Realm, "Fucking rocks!" It's an example of just how much Link can interact with the world of Breath of the Wild, in this instance doing a Temple of Doom and crushing bokoblins with rolling rocks. This shot begins the little section of the trailer designed to showing off the main item of the game, the Sheikah Slate, and its abilities called runes, such as the Cryonis ability, where Link can create pillars of ice out of bodies of water, Magnesis, where Link can lift objects and move them around, even dropping them on enemies. It's likely that here, since the area looks freezing cold, Link is creating pillars of ice in order to use them as stepping stones to get to the treasure chest on the island in the middle. We know that freezing water will badly damage Link, so this appears to be a solution to the overworld puzzle. It's worth a note that this area is near Shrine Kinumut in the Great Plateau. Yet another showing of how dangerous the weather can be, Link walks through some trees during a storm and lightning strikes the floor not 10 feet away from him. Scary. This part of the trailer is showing off one of the cutscenes that plays at the top of the first resurrection tower Link finds, where a mysterious voice tells him to remember, and he sees the Calamity Ganon for the first time. Now we return to the same desert mountains as earlier, but this time Link is up in the Bokoblin Fortress, going toe to toe with one of them on a narrow bridge. The fact that it's a fight on a bridge like this limits Link's evasive options, so he must use the slow-mo that we've seen before in order to avoid the Bokoblin's attack, and then punish it while it recovers from a heavy swing with quick spear jabs. When Link dodges an attack in perfect time, it will activate slow motion and allow Link to retaliate with a series of rapid attacks. This is a clear example of how combat in Breath of the Wild isn't just hack and slash, a lot of it is retaliating to heavy attacks that leave enemies helpless for a while. Speaking of this, the next scene involves Link fighting what appears to be the game's interpretation of the Moblin, wielding a large Moblin club. The moblin goes for a huge overhead swing, which leaves him helpless for a second, and Link responds quickly with a powerful attack in retaliation. Link is fighting some of the stalkoblins in a desert, which interestingly seems to have a giant rib cage, part of a huge skeleton. Here, Link faces off against two blue choo-choos, but this time he's wearing armour. For the trailer so far we've seen Link wearing either his champion shirt or quilted shirt, with a traveller's shield and soldier's broadsword. However, this time he's wielding a great metal kite shield, which looks like a lesser version of the Hylian shield, and a suit of metal armour. Badass. Here we see the use of the fire arrows. Link shoots an explosive barrel to blow up a bokoblin encampment Michael Bay style. And here we see Link again in his badass suit of steel armour, this time versing off against the Great Plateau mini-boss Steppe Talus. Steppe Talus disguises itself as a set of rocks on the floor in a clearing, but if Link comes near it, it will animate and reveal itself as an incredibly tough boss, capable of killing Link in one hit. I would assume that Link's heavy armour here will make the fight a lot easier, although on the other hand mobility seems key to defeating it, because it has a weak spot which Link can climb to on its back, a large ore vein. This time, although Link is wearing the same armour as before, he's using a traveller's shield instead of the soldier's shield. I can assume that the suit of armour he wears here is either the armour of a Hylian knight or another Hylian soldier, due to the pattern on the back being similar to the Hyrule shield pattern. Next, a couple of beautiful running shots, Link running through what might be the Gerudo Desert, and then Snow Peak, which has a little bokoblin encampment down on the left. We see Link entering a shrine on Mount Hylia in the Great Plateau, Shrine Kinumut, which we know is the Cryonis trial. He opens it using his Sheikah Slate and steps inside. It's worth a note that the translation on the text of the door reads, Dungeon. A guardian then attacks Link in the rain, but the scene cuts off just before it fires. And almost at the end, we see the Master Sword in its pedestal. I'm pretty sure that this scene is a reference to the location of the Master Sword in A Link to the Past, in an overgrown clearing, complete with the stone steps leading up to its pedestal. I wonder if this hints at all at the location of the sword. Maybe it is in the Lost Woods like in the 1991 classic. And finally, the title shot for the game, set in front of the cleft rock with a deactivated guardian in the foreground. We see the rusted Master Sword and chipped, overgrown Zelda text as a reference to the post-apocalyptic Hyrule it is set in. So that was my analysis of the Breath of the Wild trailer. If you liked it, leave a like, and if you haven't already, consider subscribing. Is there anything you think I've missed? What do you think of Breath of the Wild? Leave it in the comments below. Cheers guys, and I'll see you next time.